This verse shows that God is not a God of feeling good. God is not a God looking for happiness. God is not a God, an optimistic God who's always trying to look on the positive side of things. He was not saying, oh, well, but, there's this guy Noah, he's a good guy, and, overall, we could say that things are okay, and human beings are not killing each other yet. So let's not be so negative about the human condition. He didn't think that way. He was totally upset in his heart. He was grieved within his being that that man was being unrighteous. And that is a quality that spirit people have. They become grieved and upset and non-conformist when they see unrighteousness around them. They cannot live with this idea that things are okay. If they look around in their spirit being and they begin to see that there are things that are not okay, and they become grieved, their heart becomes burdened, and they can't be consoled because they want the manifestation of righteousness to take place. So that is one thing we can discern from this verse. And now another thing that is worth noting here is that it says, and it repented the Lord that he had made man on the earth. Notice it doesn't say, and it repented the Lord that he had made man. And if you read Genesis, the first time man appears is on the earth. So why would God, quote unquote, redundantly add the phrase on the earth? And that is a spiritual key. When God added the phrase on the earth in this verse, he was trying to get you and I, to get us to meditate on a spiritual message that's hidden behind that phrase. And now if we go to the original Hebrew text, we will see that the word when it says here made was translated from the Hebrew word asa, which means to make, but in the sense of somebody who fashions something, who gives it shape and gives it a form, an intended appearance, an intended shape. Now that's the word made. The word man was translated from the Hebrew word Adam, and as you may imagine, as you can infer, the name Adam comes from the Hebrew word Adam. Adam literally means man, and the word earth was translated from the Hebrew word eretz. So we have three words here: asa, which means made; man, which means Adam; and earth, which is the word eretz in Hebrew. Now, interestingly enough, these three words, asa, and the word Adam and eretz, only appear 11 times together in the same verse throughout Scripture. You would think that those three words would be combined more frequently, but for some reason God decided that only 11 verses in all of Scripture, all of the Old Testament, what is called the Old Testament, would contain those three words at the same time. And out of those 11 verses, only 2 of them are in the book of Genesis. So we have just read one of the 2 verses that have all 3 of those Hebrew words at the same time, Genesis 6:6. And the first time it appears is back in Genesis 1, during the story of God's recreation of the earth. And it's in Genesis 1:26. And herein lies the message that God has when he added the phrase on the earth in Genesis 6:6. It says here in Genesis 1:26, and God said, let us make man in our image, after our likeness, and let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the fowl of the air, and over the cattle, and over all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creepeth upon the earth. Now, this verse, therefore, emphasizes the motivation or the reason why God placed man on earth. it was, as it says here, and let them have dominion over, and it mentions the fish of the sea, and the fowl of the air, and the cattle, and over all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creepeth upon the earth. That is the reason why God put man on earth. It was to have dominion over all things, to take the world, take the earth back unto God. Something had happened prior to man's appearance on earth, and that is visible, or that can be discerned from the flood that Genesis mentions, and this is not the flood of Noah. We're talking about the flood of Genesis 1, because it says that God made the heavens and the earth, and then suddenly in verse 2 it says that the Spirit of the Lord was moving over the waters, and that there was disorder and chaos in the world. So God created things in His orderly and purposeful way, and something happened between verse 1 and 2, and suddenly the earth is in chaos. It is void and in a state of disorder. And the earth was flooded, was full of water. That's why the Spirit of the Lord was moving over the waters. So a flood had taken place. God had brought a judgment on the earth, and the spirit beings that were here on earth were judged at that moment, and those spirits had to flee the earth and move up into the spiritual atmosphere, because they had no place to land in. It's like a bird who has nowhere to set up a nest. Like, for example, when Noah was in the ark and he let the pigeon out to see if the waters had receded, and the pigeon came back, and he understood that the waters were still covering the earth, and that he had to wait a little longer before he could get out of the ark. So God brought a judgment and made it impossible for the spirit beings to have a stranglehold or a stronghold on the earth. They were forced to flee up into the spiritual atmosphere. And then God decided to place man on earth, and He made him out of the earth. Why? Because He needed a tangible point of contact. He wanted to take back the physical realm, which had been overrun by these spirit beings. And by the way, these are the spirit beings that eventually get manifested, say in people who are possessed, or all the evil types of manifestations, of spiritual manifestations on earth, come from these spirits that were on earth before the arrival of man. Now, when God placed man on earth, He made him out of tangible earth material, so that he could act as the point of contact, the point of physical contact, through whom God would then retake the entire earth and destroy the powers that were being manifested over the earth. And that's why that's one of the things that the Lord mentions here, is that man may have dominion over the fowl of the air. And the word fowl was translated from the Hebrew word of, which literally means flying thing. It comes from the verb that means to fly, so it's a flying thing. And the word air was mistranslated from the Hebrew word Shamah-Elim, which literally means heavens. It's a plural word. So it actually says over the flying things in the heavens. So that is a prophetic figure of the powers and principalities that are moving in the spiritual atmosphere, and that man was supposed to come and establish dominion over them. That's why God put man on earth. So the moment man forgot that, the moment man began to think that his purpose on earth is to be happy, that's when he lost his contact or communion with God.